Who's excited? Come on, there's some people who are excited in the house. Did you know, church, it's a victory week for the Maroons? Seti and Jacinta just walked out the building, didn't they? No, you guys stay. Amen. God loves everyone. Just more for the Maroons this week. Oh, no jokes. All right. I actually told myself, do not get up and speak about the football. All right. NRL was a fantastic week for the Maroons. And Lord, let's pray. Lord, be with I felt for the Blues. I actually felt they did a fantastic job on Wednesday night. But it was difficult for them because the Maroons, they were fine. All right, okay, we're going to start. But victory apart from that is asphalting. This church has been here since the 80s, and there's been a prayer and a heart to believe for that road to be sealed, and it's happening in the school holidays. So thank you, Lord. Amen. All right, hey, church, I'm excited. I'm excited because like Laura said, we're focusing on we walk by faith and not by sight. And this has been a message from our senior pastor, Pastor Dan, that he's just got this heart that we're going to teach and lift up our congregations, all the congregations that fall under the banner of CRM, which is Wyndham City Church, about teaching us how to walk by faith and not by sight. And the reason why we need to learn this as Christians and non-Christians, anyone really needs to learn this, is because that actually leads to victory, all right? And as I was preparing for another message on faith this week, I just got this massive sense that I needed to speak on faith under pressure. All right, but it was bigger than just holding to your faith when there's pressure around, right? It was more about, it's actually much bigger than that. What's come out from today that I'm going to be sharing on is actually how to handle pressure. Because who knows that even if you're born with a silver spoon, right? We can look at people and think that they've got everything together and they've got it from birth. But the reality is we don't know other people's lives. You don't actually know it. And in this world, there are pressures of all sizes and all different sorts. Physical pressures, social pressures. There's so much there. You can't actually get through life here in this world without in some way experiencing challenge and difficulties. We all carry them. We all face them. And I want to say today that this is the sense that I got that I need to share with everyone right from the very beginning. No matter what you're facing, you can survive and you can thrive. That's what I want. It's a real message. It's for you today. In the room, anyone online, whoever watches it, whenever they do, I want you to know from the very beginning that no matter what you're facing, I'm telling you, you can survive and you can also thrive in this world. This is such a big thing. I'll tell you why. You guys know I love my coffee, yeah? Do you guys know I love my coffee? Loz is like shaking her head. Where's he going to go? He's always talking about coffee. Well, you see, every month we have a combined staff meeting at Kingston City Church, right? There's 4 churches in our network and we all come together once a month to have a combined staff meeting. Now, when I arrived there after the hour-and-a-half drive across town to Kingston, they've got this small little home-size Breville cappuccino machine, yeah? You guys know it, right? What do you think is the first thing that I do when I get to the other side of town? I head straight for that machine. And you guys know, I'm just wanting you to know from the beginning, I know how to use the machine. Don't think that I don't know how to use the machine. I know the milk, I know how to grind it, I know how to use the little group handle, okay? All right? I brought it up here just so you know I know how to use the group handle. So I, like usual, go straight for it. And on Tuesday, I was feeling particularly nice. So I said to Andy, who runs our youth ministry here and at Kingston, I'll make you a coffee, bro. And he's like, okay, cool. And so I make a coffee. It's complete. It's the best cappuccino. All right. You really wanted the one I gave to Andy. That's what I'm just saying. All right. You can't have it. Andy's already drunk it. Okay. You can't have it anymore. But I made it. It was so good. And he's sipping it. He's enjoying it. Then I proceed to make my own coffee for me. And as I'm making the coffee, by this stage, all the other staff members have come into the room, the hub, right? They're all there. And then suddenly the coffee machine explodes. I was going to say blood everywhere, but coffee everywhere. All right, it was not a pretty picture, all right? It's just like the handle, it was great, that sound effects included. So it goes everywhere, and do you know what everyone does immediately? They just assume that I can't make coffee. They're like, oh, it had to be Chris. I'm like, you guys know I come here once a month. What are you thinking it's me? And then I do this. I point to the evidence, right, church? All right, I say, Andy, how good is your coffee? Did I make you a coffee? And he's like, yeah, you made me a coffee. He goes, but in his wisdom, right, I see that it's now wisdom, all right, but at the time I was really offended. But he said, I'm going to still teach you, Chris, how to use the coffee machine. And so I'm like, all right, I'll entertain your comments. And you can teach me. So I get the grinder out, I grind the coffee, it all goes in here. And then he goes, then put it up into the group head. Thank you very much, Andy. And then he goes, now, he said this interesting thing. He goes, now make sure when you put it in, it goes right to the very end. And in that moment, now church, I did not tell him this, okay? But I may not have put it right to the very end of the group head, okay? Now, he doesn't know that, and he will know that if he watches the stream, okay? I have a little bit of pride, okay? God's dealing with it. And I realized in that moment, as he's giving me the instructions, that the next time I didn't put the group handle in the right position. And what the cappuccino machines do, right, is they put pressure, they put an intense amount of pressure on the hot water to infuse it through the coffee grind so the liquid gold comes out, right, into your cup. And what happened is because I didn't have the group head in the right position, it couldn't handle the pressure. You see what I'm saying, church, today? Is often in life, sometimes if our mind is not in the right position, that our minds, us, who we are, can buckle under pressure. What I've realized in life is that there's so many things that anyone and everyone can fall victim to, but there are some people that seem to, under any circumstance you throw at some people, whatever it is that other people would face in similar circumstances, some people are able to survive whatever life throws at them. Today, I want to let you know you can survive. You can survive under pressure. My wife and I, one of our favorite television shows, it's been for a long time, is Survivor. Who knows Survivor? Anyone know Survivor? The game Survivor. We got, come on. Is it big in South Africa? It is, yeah, because it's an awesome show. That's right, that's why. And South Africa's awesome, and so they watch awesome shows. I just made that up. Okay, so my wife and I, if you're not familiar, not lots of hands went up. Okay, so Survivor is a game show, it's a television game show. They start with like 20 people, and they put them in a remote location like the middle of Australia or on a desert place, what's it called, a remote place in Fiji, all right? And they literally have to live off beans and rice. I'm out right there. Hate beans. Okay, there it is. I'm just telling you, little black beans. My taste buds allergic to them. So I wouldn't survive on Survivor. But what they do is they all face the same challenges. They all go through the same physical, social, and emotional opportunities. They face them, but only some are able to survive to the end, because what happens is each week and each night they have to vote people off, and unless you win a physical challenge and receive immunity, everyone else is up for voting, and the show gets to point, it comes right down to a sole survivor. And there is always, every season, because they design it this way, but there's always some people that no matter, you see, they face the same challenges. They face them as other people put in the same scenario, but they can outwit, outplay, and outlast anybody else given the same circumstances. This had me thinking, church, that when you start reading the Bible, right, there's some people in it that are outstanding. They face things that you and I would look at and it would send shivers down our spine. You think of Joseph being thrown into prison for things that he did not commit. You look at Daniel in the lion's den, the three Jewish boys who got thrown in the fire, in the furnace, right? Could you imagine being just to stand there and say, I know this by me saying I still believe in Jehovah as God will send me to the furnace, but we'll still do it. There are some people, I'm thinking like if these guys were on the game of Survivor, they would be your sole survivors because they could do it. What was it? So this is what I want to share on. There is something that they had. Do you know what it was that they had? Faith. Who said faith? Come on, faith. Yes, you would say faith. But here we go, Tilly. Faith wasn't the only thing. They mixed their faith with something else that they all had in common. This is what they had. Do you want to know what they had? Let me ask you, who wants to know what it was? They had faith and something else that they mixed it with. Come on, I see some hands up. We want to know who wants to know, who needs to know today, because we're all going to face it. Well, we're going to look at Paul, right? Because Paul not only faced the same things and very similar things as these guys that I've mentioned in the Bible, but he also through his letters reveals what it is. He articulates what he mixed with faith that made him, and if you need to hear Paul's resume, by the way, this is a soul survivor right now. Paul, right, this guy, no matter what would kill somebody else, doesn't kill him. What somebody else would be derailed by, it didn't derail Paul. Paul's thrown in, he gets shipwrecked. Most people back then die from a shipwreck. Not Paul, he survives. Then he goes and gets bitten by a poisonous snake that everyone on that island knows that if you get bitten by it, you die. Not Paul. Somehow he survives. All right, he gets stoned, and not because he's smoking something. He gets stones pegged at him, right? It's a form of death, right? Not Paul. He survives. Okay, then he gets several hits on his life, like the mafia are after him, the mob. People die when they get hits put on their lives, but not Paul. He survives. He's got a resume that there is something about this guy that buckles everyone else, but not Paul. Whatever you threw at Paul, he would not buckle under. Instead, what would happen is every new challenge that you threw at Paul would make him even stronger, and it would prove to the world that what he believed was true. This is what it was. Paul added to his faith in God. What he added was his focus for his life. The purpose of Paul's life was very evident. So he had faith in God, but then he had a focus for his life. He aimed his life in a direction that no one could make him move from. Listen to this, watch this. 2 Corinthians 4:17-18. For this light, I love this, I love it. He writes this right after he's just mentioned about he went under a persecution that he said, in his words, was like the sentence of death. And he makes this comment. For this light, momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. He saw that nothing on this world could compare with what he knew by faith was ahead of him in glory. As we look not to the things that are seen, see, nothing that we can see was in comparison to what he knew. As we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient. Transient means temporary. They're here one day, they're gone tomorrow. If you can crave, you know what? I just want to call out some false advertising right now. You know the little ice creams they're called heaven? Yeah? They look like magnums, but they're called heaven. False advertising. They end. When you finish the ice cream, it's gone. It can't be heaven. Anyway, there we go. You see what I mean? There's things in this world, the things that are seen they're temporary, right? But he was looking at the things that are unseen, which are eternal. Because Paul centered his life around God and placed his life's purpose for Jesus, he was able to endure any difficulty, and any difficulty could not end his life. That's what was going on. It couldn't buckle him. Yes, he eventually died under home arrest doing what he loved best as an old man. But the things that the world tried to kill him with and tried to take him down with, he wouldn't buckle under them like so many others do. Paul centered his life around God. This is a massive difference to what can happen in the world, is we can center God. We can love God. We can have faith in God. But we can center God around our life and what we're aiming for, what we want to do. It's geared that way because you go through education and everything's pointing to what do you want to do when you get older. And that's not bad at all. But add the teaching of God's there. And so think about your future in regards to God is there. There's so many difficulties that end people's lives. This is the reality. Or they derail people and fling people into bad lifestyles. This is another area. See, but Paul had this focus on his life to live for Jesus. And it enabled him to endure great trials. And it's not just faith that he had, right? Because faith is correct. You've got to have faith. But so many people have faith in Jesus. They believe in Jesus. They know that he's there. But Paul added to his faith in Jesus a direction. He made a decision to direct his life for Jesus. And that couldn't sway, no one could sway him otherwise. And he was able to go beyond trials. In 2 Corinthians 5:4, he says this. I love it. This is where you get to see how he thinks, right? He said, for while we are still in this tent, we groan, to 2 Corinthians 5:4. For while we are still in this tent, he speaks about the body as a tent because a tent is temporary, all right? He speaks later on about a building being his body in heaven. So this is the way he knew. It's not that he thought this way. He had the revelation it is this way. What we live in is a tent, all right? Now, I've done lots of camping in my life. I do not want to live in a tent. All right. Well, I remember the first time I went camping with my dad and it rained. I'm like, I'm done. Camping sucks. There it is. Okay. Tents. He says, for while we're still in this tent, we groan. Here we go. We need them, but it's not what drove him. It wasn't his life's goal to make sure that everyone was impressed with what he wore. If he had to go about in sheepskin, he would, to get to the next point for what he was living for. It didn't, what burdens a lot of people in this life, he didn't get burdened by. He was clothing himself with that which lasts beyond the grave. No one can take anything to heaven. I have told Eve I like jet skis. She knows I would like to, if I could, take one to heaven, but I can't. Because it's transient. It's here today only. It's not to be my burden or my life's goal to have these things. What most people let themselves be burdened by, and still happens today, doesn't burden Paul. 2 Corinthians 5:5-7 says this, He who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. This is what happened in my life, church. He who has prepared us is God, and he's given us his Spirit as a guarantee. Not everyone can kind of grasp this, but Jesus speaks about you can't see the kingdom of heaven unless you're born again, unless you have the Spirit of God come alive inside you. So what happened to me at 22, a lot of you are familiar with it. I had a moment where I yielded to God. I'm like, okay, if you're there, I want in. I'm willing to believe, I don't know. And then he sent his Spirit in. He himself Jesus could not come into my body. He has put rules in place. He's put physics in place that he can't come into my body as flesh and change my mind. But at my will, as a spirit, he can. And so what Jesus does to them who are willing to say, I'll give you a go, Jesus, I'm willing to believe, his spirit that you have yielded, you're saying, oh, I'm in, I can do it, I will let you. I've opened the door to my heart, and his spirit comes in. And in that moment, his spirit showed me that the Bible was real and God was real. And in that moment, I was prepared to live for him. You see? Paul says, he goes to them, he's saying, God does this. If you let his spirit on the inside, he will prepare you with that spirit to be able to live for him. He's not saying don't chase becoming an engineer. He's not saying stop becoming a teacher. He's not saying don't become a movie star. He's just giving you a spirit that knows that God's there, and in that moment prepares you. I could live for Jesus. I can, because now I know you're there. So he says this, and then check out what happens next. So we are always, everyone say always. Always. He says that too. He says always of good courage. Always means, well, I don't know, last time I checked, it means always. No matter what he's facing. I've gone through so many things, church. Have they hurt me? Oh my golly gosh. Yes, they've hurt. But somehow in the midst of it, I have this moment where I smile with God. I'm like, oh, you know what I'm facing. Yet somehow I'm still of good courage. How does he do it? But this is what actually happens. You can't hit people down. Amen. Come on. Someone's watching the live stream over there. We're about 3 seconds behind. Cool. All right, we know, he says this, we are always of good courage. We know that while we are at home in this body, we are away from the Lord. He's just saying we know that we're not up there, we're here, right? So because of that situation, this is how we live. Paul is saying to everyone, to the Corinthians at first, but really to anyone who reads this, he's saying this is how I live my life. This is how we who can endure great things live our lives. We walk by faith and not by sight. He wasn't worried about the things of the sight. Yes, he'd have to concern himself of them, but he wasn't worried by them. Paul's letting us know that that's how he was always of good courage. Because no matter what he faced, he's like, that's all good, I'm living for Jesus, baby. So I'll just keep on rocking this boat till I get through it. His focus was so stern on Jesus that no one could shift it. You try and shift a person's focus when they are so deadly positioned on something that you cannot change or sway their mind. You know what? You try and spitball at somebody who's stuck on those totem poles, like that, and you can't move them. They won't be deterred. I remember the time on my honeymoon, our honeymoon with me and Eve. I took Eve on her first upside down roller coaster at Rainbow's End. Yes, in New Zealand. Does anyone know that? You come on, my New Zealand guys. That was like the biggest joy of my life. I was praying that we could go on a honeymoon where there's a theme park, and in the end, because I'm such a nice guy, I yielded. I said, all right, we'll go on a cruise, which I also wanted to go on, but doesn't have a theme park on it. It was all good, because then God bless me. I rocked up at Auckland, and we were hopping on a train that went to Rainbow's End, and I'm like, oh my goodness, God, you have honored me for my sacrifice to Eve. It was great. Okay. So I go on this, I take her, and because it was a public holiday, right? I mean, not a public holiday. Everyone's in the city for a big Santa show. It was fantastic. No lines. I take Eve. I'm like, we're going on a roller coaster. She's like, I haven't been on one before. I'm like, that's all good. It just goes upside down. You'll be right. I grab her. I take her on. There was no lines. Suddenly, she's on the ride with me. Right, and we're going up the hill climb, like, and as you go up a hill climb, guess what? You get to look down on everything and see a new perspective. It's beautiful up there. I'm like, Eve, look around. I'm taking the glory in of Rainbow's End and Auckland, and I'm like, Eve, look at this. And I look back at Eve. This is Eve. And I'm like, Eve, there's more to see than the steel bar in front of you. And this is what she says to me. I'm not looking. I haven't done my risk assessment yet. She's got a process, right? Because she's so locked on. She's got to focus on being so, like she's internally processing what she's thrown herself into that she can now no longer exit. She can't move her focus. I tried. I'm like, look at that. We just went on that ride. Oh, look, there's a kid throwing up down there. Nothing would move her because she was so deadly persistent and focused on what she was doing in that moment. The same is those who live for Jesus. You can't shake them. You can't crush them because they're so focused. They can get through anything. 2 Corinthians, this is how Paul remained of good courage no matter what. 2 Corinthians 5:8-10 says this. He goes, yes. This is straight on. He goes, yes, we are of good courage. And we would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. He's just telling us the truth. I know God's there, so I'm happy to go there. Now, by the way, this can seem really hard because when you become a parent, right, you get kids and you get married, you have a sibling. It's hard not to be attached to things in this world, okay? I do not want to downplay that because it is the reality. God loves people. And if the more you love Jesus, the more you end up loving people, all right? Paul writes this, and he was honest when he said it, but do not think for a moment that just because he didn't have a biological child or he may not have been married, that it was easy for him to be in this position. You can tell by his letters, he had attached himself like a father to children, to everyone who was willing to accept the gospel, and even to those who weren't. He knew what it was to love people. He had attachments, but he's just saying the truth. This is how I can persist through anything. So, we are of good courage, and we would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. So whether we are at home, whether we're at home with the Lord or away, we make it our aim to please Him. He's telling us his life's position, his focus, his purpose in life. No matter we're at home or away, no matter if you watch home or away, no matter what you do in life, make it your aim to please God. And he finishes it off. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Hey, whether you're a Christian in the house today, whether you don't know yet or not, but everyone, it doesn't matter. Everyone will have a day where they stand before the Lord. It's not my focus point, but I'm saying it because it's true. Whether you believe it or not, this is going to happen to everyone. We all must appear before the judgment seat of Christ so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, in the tent, whether good or evil. Paul's, Joseph's, Daniel's, Jesus, they all aimed their life to please God. Get this. Well, this is what I love right here. See, Joseph and Daniel and the three boys, right? They weren't preachers. They weren't apostles. They weren't pastors. They weren't teachers. They weren't any of these 5 ascension gifts. They didn't work for a church building on a salary. They weren't in that position at all. They were guys living their life in whatever they did for God. Wherever they were, their character, their morals, their ethics, everything, their vision, their focus, they would not stray from God. And guess what? They were able, under ungodly leaders, able to rise to a very high height of responsibility. Do you see? It's not about becoming someone who has a mandate to preach from a platform or pastor a flock or someone who has to be employed by the church. Whoever you are, be like Joseph and Daniel. In either category, they lived for Jesus and God was able to raise them up to high heights of responsibility. They lived their lives aimed to please God. There's a lot of people who have faith in Jesus, but they aren't living for Him. They're living for themselves, or they're living self-centered lives. And I'm not having a go at anyone. You know what I'm saying. I'm just speaking the truth, right? There's so many that can fall into the category where we love Jesus. Yeah, man, we love Jesus. Yeah, but I'm pursuing this because I want that. And this is the situation. When you get into that place, when your eyes aren't glued to God as a focus of your life, that's where you can start to compromise because your eyes are over here and it's just wanting something that. And so temptations and pitfalls and all these things can become pleasing to your eyes. But not for these guys. They were able. Because Paul lived for God and this was his vision and focus, not only was he able to endure things, but he wasn't derailed from living righteously. That's good, right? Yes, it's good. I'll just pump myself up here. Thanks, John. You gave me a pump up then. He couldn't fall to the trickery of this world's ways. Do you know there's so many things in this world that if they're not in the Bible, they still look really good? I'm talking about ways, like the way you think you can live a life, right? They look good. And they're like, yeah, I could believe that. But their destination is what Jesus says, steal, kill, and destroyed. That's the destination of these things. Paul didn't fall into that trap. Check this out, 2 Corinthians 2:17. For we are not like so many. He calls it. Paul loved people, but he knew even in his day, only so many years from Christ going back to heaven, there was already so many who believed in Jesus. They believed in Jesus, but like so many, had turned to making God's word an income for their life or a way to puff themselves up and be leaders of people, not leading people to Jesus. They wanted that. So he says, for we are not like so many peddlers of God's word, but as men of sincerity. His locked-on vision to please God kept him sincere. This is amazing. Imagine what the world would think when every time they look at you and I in our workplace and they see there is nothing that I can't say that is sincere about that person. What have you got going on? You see godly character makes people perk up. Why can this person handle what that person cannot? They're in the same team at work. They handle the same phone calls. Why is that person of good courage and this one not? I want to know what's going on. They stayed on site. Paul's aim helped him hold to godly conduct, to godly character. This is how we do it. This is why this church will be known so wide, because of the people in it, not because of the platform, not because of the lights, though I like pretty lights. They'll be known. This church will be known because of the people that are coming out under the teaching that does come from Jesus. And people will be like, you can't shake these people. They're so sincere. Their integrity is so high. I want to go where they go. Come on. He didn't take his eyes off the greater thing that he was living for. This is why he was able to survive in living righteously. Even I see this happen all the time in our favorite game of Survivor on TV. All right, you guys know it, right? The moment, right, one player takes personally a play from another player. You have to vote people out. Like, that's the game. You got to do it. But the moment, right, you write someone else's name down and then it's found out that you wrote someone else's name down and someone didn't like that, they take offense to it and they go, oh, I'm going to get back at that person. The moment someone in the game of Survivor takes things personally and enters into a personal vendetta of revenge, you can taste their goodbye. It's like tribal council's coming, baby, and your name's on the paper. See you later, alligator. Because when you get personal in life, when you start going after revenge or personal ambition that crushes other people or doesn't care for other people's, that's what derails a person. That's where we compromise good conduct and character. Happens all the time, but not to Paul and his men, and to many, many great mighty warriors of God. Proverbs 29:18 says this, where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Now this often gets spoken about. You got to have a vision for your life. Yes, you do. Otherwise this can happen. But it's not just about having a vision for your life. This proverb is about having the right vision for your life. It's deeper, right? See, he says, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. So many people are in this endeavor, this pursuit of happiness, when they don't realize that happy is he who pursues Jesus. Because Jesus is the word of God, and God gave his law through his word. Oh, Jesus is the word of God. Happy is he whose pursuit is after him and lives his ways, because his ways lead to life and life abundantly, and he's the way, the truth, and the life. I love it. The Amplified Translation here says, and rather than the word perish, it says unrestrained. If you are on a yacht out in the sea and you don't have your restraints on, you can't grab at anything and you're gone. This is where we land on thriving. If I can get the worship team up here. Because I said from the beginning, survive and thrive. See, at the end of the game of Survivor, I kind of really wish that I'd redone this sermon and I'd put like the Survivor, candles up and boom, 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 have the drums in the background. Could have got Nathan going dum, 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 dum. That's just me with my flair. All right. In this game, right, it always comes down to one person wins. Yet they will generally stand at the end between 2 or 3 people to give their debate. They get to share everything they did, right? The people who just win all the physical challenges and didn't win by socially, by strategically and physically, they never win. You can survive in this life, but you don't look like you're thriving. But the ones that always wins are those that can outwit, they can outplay and outlast, they can think strategically, they can maneuver socially, and they can handle physically. In other words, they can succeed in any situation, not just one. There are some people in this world that just get crushed and crushed and crushed and crushed, and hats off for them for just surviving. But there is more to that. Check out, this is what this leads to. Look at the destination of this particular focus. In 2 Corinthians 4:8-9, this is what Paul says. He says, we are afflicted in every way. This poor guy, not Paul at all, this heroic guy. He says, we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. Didn't matter. Every way didn't matter. Perplexed. What is going on here? But not driven to despair. He's persecuted, but not forsaken. Forsaken meaning abandoned. He didn't abandon his faith when he was persecuted by others. He didn't do it. Wow, this is the destination. Struck down, but not destroyed. See, this is where so many people give up. They can't be pressed down and not break. They can't be perplexed and not enter despair. They can't be persecuted for their position on something and then not cave in. And they can't be struck down and not destroyed. But them who keepeth the law, them who fix their eyes on Jesus Christ, them whose aim is on Jesus Christ, no matter what field I work in, no matter where I'm positioned, no matter what I face, my eyes are fixed on Jesus, and I'll live for you, and I'll live for you. Nothing. They can be crushed, church, but not break. They can be perplexed, but not enter despair. They can be persecuted but never leave their faith in Jesus Christ. I've had days where I wanted to, but I never did because I couldn't do that. No way. They can be struck down but not destroyed. Church, this is thriving. You can throw anything at me. And with a glint in my eye and a smile on my face, I will stand strong. Okay, this is going to hurt me, baby. He's thinking this roller coaster is this is going to be a tough one. But she did it. She had to. She was restrained in. She's locked in. It's because they got good safety measures in New Zealand. She was always going to survive. And in the end, she goes back and we did it 6 more times because she could thrive in it. I know, I married a winner. This is thriving, church. You can survive any affliction and you can thrive through any condition as them that really live for Jesus. All right, let's stand to our feet, church. We're going to enter praise. We're going to praise God as we come to the end of this message. But I really have it on my heart to pray today for anyone who's under pressure or wants to be ready for when pressure comes. I want you to start coming forward. I want the team, Isaiah and David, Pastor David, I want you guys praying over people. Anyone, if you want to come forward for strength and boldness and courage for what you're facing, start coming forward now. I want you to come forward. We're going to enter praise and worship, but I want to pray. I want to lay my hands on you. I want to give you extra strength and boldness because I've faced things. We all face things. But come and have your hands laid on by the elders of the church. and receive prayer and strength. If you want to live for Jesus today, you want to change just slightly, if you're in that category where you just want to pivot, just a degree off, it's pretty close. But now I want to live for Jesus where I am. I want you to come down and I'm just going to bless you. I will bless you. That door's open and you will stand before mighty people. That's the word. Someone come forward if you're in a position. If you're in a position, but you're in a good position at work, but you could go, there is a position available that's a little higher. And it's going to put you in front of the front runners. I'm going to pray that the door is open, that you're chosen. All right? And it's going to be your godly character. You're going to have an influence in this company or organisation. That's for someone. Come forward. God's going to open doors for every single one of us because we're the people God's got here to show Him and His glory. Amen. Next week, I'm going to unpack this a bit further. We're going to go a little bit more deeper into this, and I'm going to share on thriving and surviving and what it looks like practically and where you are. How do we outwork it practically so it's applicable in an even greater way? That's going to happen next week, so don't miss out. Amen. Take us in prayer and come forward for prayer. Church, have a moment where you're praying for them that are coming forward for prayer, who recognize that